So first up, we have Jeff Chowdhry. So if we can give them a clap as they come up as well, that'd be nice. So Jeff has worked in the finance industry for many years. And from there, he then started angel investing and helping out other companies. And I've actually interviewed two of his kids, so Leah in the front row there, and Reece Chowdhry as well. And he really believes in helping out the next generation and pushing them forwards. So do you want to come up on stage? Yeah, wherever you want to sit. Okay. Grab a seat, yeah. Next we have Dimple Patel. She's got a little fan club here. So I told Dimple's story a lot. So Dimple was raised in a council estate. She then became Goldman Sachs trader, bought a coffee shop when she was 23, turned it around, made it 37 coffee shops, sold it to private equity, then joined Truve in the early days. Jay's shaking his head because he's got to follow this. She joined Truva, they raised 40 million. She then sold that to Made.com. Made.com went bust. She then managed to save it and then sell it again. And she's now just exited that. So that's quite a wild story she's had there. And she's going to talk more about it when she gets up on stage. So join us. Okay, so last but not least, we've got Jay Gujral. So Jay actually founded his first company while at university called Grad Lancer, which was then able to exit. He then, interestingly, went back into the corporate world, worked for companies such as Dow Jones, McKinsey, and BCG. And then he co-founded Block Dojo, which got 25% of blockchain companies funded in the UK. That's now expanding and is a global commercial director, and then going into places such as the Philippines and India as well. So give your hands to Jay. Was that all factual for everybody there?
Yeah, I need you doing that every time I walk into a room, to be honest.
So what I just mentioned there is how you've all had very different paths just sitting on the stage today. And what I want to get from you is, do you think you took the right path? And would you reckon other people took the path you did? Or what do you think maybe people could do differently?
You want me to start?
So whoever wants to start.
Okay, I'll start from you. Okay. I suppose the question really is not really whether I took the right path or whether I took the right path, but am I happy? And I'm absolutely happy. I'm a bit different from a lot of people in this room in the sense that I had a long-term corporate career in asset management, fund management, etc., etc. And I was lucky enough basically to be helped very, very early on by appreciation, actually. And it was a complete luck that I managed to get in the city. When I used to come out to a bank station 25 years ago and walk up Lombard Street, I literally was the only brown person in the street. I was like reverse Southwall. And so from that day that I was helped along on that journey, I made it a mission of mine to help anyone I could on that journey. I'm a bit older now, but that's really what I want to do, and it's very important to me. Help young people, help British Asian people, people who have actually had some, diverse problems in their background. I even help people from the north. So I'm from Newcastle, you see, I was born in Newcastle. I've enjoyed it. Yeah. So that's kind of my story, and now I work for Concept Ventures. I'll give you 10 seconds on that story as well. Traditional model for an Asian, British Asian, Indian, whatever, Pakistan, is the father sets the business up, and the son and the daughter who's sitting there comes and works. I was the complete reverse of that. So my son set the business up in 2017. I took early retirement from my previous job. He said, "Are you doing anything?" I said, "Not much." He says, come and work with me 1 day a week, pass the time. And he said there was 2 conditions. I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm the boss." I said, "That's absolutely fine. I've done enough of that for 25 years. And the second condition is you're not going to be paid." So that's fine. Here I am 6 years later with the biggest pre-seed fund in the UK now. So it's been reasonably a nice journey. And I learned something new every single day of my life. And so that's why I'm happy.
Thank you. On to you, Dimple.
Yeah, thanks. So I started my first business back in 2010. It wasn't in tech, and at the time I was a Goldman trader. So, being the only female on that trading desk, everybody was like, you're set up for life, it's going to be amazing, you're going to print money. And then I took this really unorthodox approach, but it was kind of the middle of the banking crisis as well. And the main thing was really just to learn. It was to learn how to build a business. I didn't have any contacts that was going to get me VC money. So this was a turnaround. I took a business that somebody else couldn't make work, and I tested myself to see if I was able to build it into something profitable and grow it going forward. And that was kind of where my entrepreneurial journey started. In all honesty, there were moments last year where I'd be like, what am I doing? Like, why did I sign up to this path? It can go sideways very, very quickly. And I think it's really important to remember that, as glamorous as it sounds to be starting and running businesses, there is a huge amount of risk that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and a huge amount of responsibility that you bear in doing that as well. I think over the years, now being on the other side, I've absolutely loved every moment of it. And I think it's really helped me grow and develop as a person. It's helped me kind of build an overall life that works for me. I've had 2 children, so I have an element of flexibility in terms of being able to see them as well. And I continue to face new challenges that push me and make me uncomfortable. And I think that is the piece that I love. It's the piece that gets me out of bed in the morning. And I don't know if it's the banking crisis where I started my career that turned me into a bit of an adrenaline junkie. But building something to last and building something that impacts people's lives is really, really valuable. And I think moving into tech just helped me understand how much more quickly you can scale when you are using tech. Physical scaling is extremely painful and capital intensive. So every business that I join, there's a new learning, there's a new team, there's something new to kind of accomplish and achieve. But when I was 23 and looking at my first business, it was really just, where do I get started? Where is the opportunity? How do I throw everything at this thing to make it work? So we've had ups and downs. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but I would say definitely the right path for me.
Yeah, I think for me, my path is slightly different. Started my own business and then went into consulting and then gone back into a business. But my path was that way because after university, I was like, this is probably the first time in life where I can actually do something where I don't have any financial commitments. I've got nothing that I need to pay for or anything. I'm going to take this risk now. And one thing that I suppose I was and still am really, I'm quite good at is building a network or building a community. And that's kind of what got me through at university was I come up with this business. Can I find someone to back me? And thankfully I did, after probably making a mistake of walking up and down streets of London with a pitch deck trying to get physical VC money, and I was like, actually, this is probably not the right thing, but I didn't know what the right thing was at that time. This was like 2014. But found an angel in Portsmouth where I was at university who was willing to back me, literally off the back of a pitch deck that I'd created a few weeks before. He gave me the cash to build out the platform that I wanted to create, and that's kind of where that journey started and has led me to what I'm doing now. But I wanted to do the corporate route and the consulting route because it was like, right, I've had a grounding in doing something myself. I have no idea what the right thing is. So let's try and figure out what the right thing is. And it turns out all companies are just as messed up as even the one that I was, I'd started. So that was always good to know as well. So even when you go to a McKinsey, you realize that it's still nuts, absolutely nuts being inside there. And you realize that actually most people are fumbling their way through life. So I might as well try and do it myself. And that's kind of where then the dojo came into it. So Block Dojo is a venture builder, blockchain venture builder that we started last January. And to be honest, after going into it was actually quite I took the slightly less risky approach because I was still at BCG at the time and I was building it evenings and weekends with a couple of others. And that was my approach this time because I was like, if this does go wrong, at least I've got a backup plan for once. So that's what I quite liked about it. But most founders don't have that opportunity and they go in full bore and take on the full risk. But touch wood, it's worked well for us so far. Yeah.
So I think the important thing there is they all had very different journeys, but they're all quite happy with how it turned out. And I think often you hear like entrepreneurial journeys of, oh, I had a lemonade stand when I was 5. It's like, not everybody's like that. And people come to in very different paths. So don't compare yourself to others because if you compared all of them to each other when they were 30, they'd been doing completely different things. but they're all happy with where they got to today. And you mentioned at the beginning there about how you had a British Asian help you at the beginning. What's all been your experiences, especially in the early stages of your careers, with the community supporting you? Did you have that support? Did you have people who didn't believe in you? What was that like?
To be absolutely honest, it was non-existent. I was very lucky. There was one chap who took pity of me, probably, and so gave me the opportunity to move into an area which was completely dominated by other types of people. And but looking back now, 25 years ago, if he hadn't given me that one break as a result of one conversation, I wouldn't have done what I did, and I wouldn't be here today. And so, as I said earlier, I want to do the same for some people, if I can, on that journey. Just one break, one introduction, one connection, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But I just feel it's important that I do that, because I did get that one person who helped me, even out of pity.
So my community, Asian community, is based up north in kind of Leeds, Bradford. And I went to Cambridge, so for a short amount of time I was a bit of a golden child until I quit that job to start the coffee shops. And it became, every time I went up there would be a lot of, you used to work at Goldman, but now you wipe tables. And I'd be like, well, yeah, and I clean toilets as well. But, everybody was doubting me. They couldn't understand why I'd done what I'd done. It just felt too much of a risk. And in all honesty, I wouldn't say that went away for a good 7-8 years. It took the exit for people to say, actually, maybe that did work out. But then after...
Well, people still doubt you now. They don't quite realise how big Chowdhry was.
Yeah, so even now, I will get people that say, well, you stopped working, have you? Or, make me feel like, conversely, if they know that I am working and I'm running a company, I'm a terrible mother, or the first thing they ask me or remark on when they see me is whether I gained any weight since the last time they saw me. So I think to some degree, my community is probably not the most entrepreneurially focused when it comes to particularly women and work and jobs. But I'm also, I'm quite stubborn. So the more they were turning around and saying, you're not going to be able to do this, the more it gave me a point to prove. And I think that has fueled me quite a lot, especially over those initial years where it's a huge amount of risk and you spend every other night thinking that you've done something kind of stupid and actually it can be quite public and everybody's going to see you fail. So now I'm very comfortable in myself. I don't take any notice of what they say. But I think a lot of people, particularly in that situation, would maybe have just packed it in and sat down. And I think there'll be a lot of lost opportunities, particularly within that community, that could otherwise have built incredible companies.
I went to private school. I didn't actually have many Indian friends or Desi friends at private school, but it took me to get to university and then my placement year where I actually realised that having the Indian network or having my Asian community network was so much more powerful than I actually ever realised. Like going back to my placement year at Lenovo, my manager then, Sanjay, he literally mentored me through my first year there. I was like, this guy's brilliant, it's great, I left the company now. We still message now, and that's 10 years later, we're still friends, he still treats me like a close friend. I find that really odd because when I go through now, say if I think about my WhatsApp connections or people that I message, I've got a handful of Indian friends or Desi friends that are really committed to help. If there's ever a problem, I know full well I can message them and they'd be the ones where I actually have a true meaningful connection to. Home at the back, we don't speak much, but when we do speak randomly, it's oh crap, that's the same conversation. It just doesn't feel like we've lost touch, for example. Salim as well, and there's other people in the room that when we talk, it just feels like you're not speaking to strangers again. Whereas I don't think you get that with many other connections or many other people. And I think that's what's quite cool about having a community like this as well.
So it's good to hear that you did get the support. Well, at least two of you did. Dimple, you hope to get more in the future now. And why do you think it's, for example, me and Gavin talked about where there's always organisations for different diversity groups, but there's very rarely anything for Asians in the startup space, in the scaling space. And why do you guys think that is? I guess it's speculation, but why aren't we doing more?
It's a good question. I mean, there was one other stat which you could have put on there, which is actually even lower, which is female Asian entrepreneurs. You're a rare, very rare example of this. I think this, we haven't got all day, and there's lots of reasons why that might be the case. But in our particular case, I mean, deliberately, we're actually looking all the time for female entrepreneurs, because they're often much more sensible than blokes, basically. And I can say that because my daughter's sitting in the front row here. But no, seriously, I mean, I think I don't know what the simple answer is. I think it's the usual barriers to entry and traditional, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that, etc., which is absolutely yes, in my opinion. And I just love to see more and more female entrepreneurs, British Asian female entrepreneurs come forward, be successful like Dimple.
Just on that as well, so one of the things we're trying to do with BAE HQ is really consciously find those British Asian entrepreneurs who are doing well, because there are people like Dimple, and a lot of people had never heard of Dimple, and I want everybody to hear about Dimple. Because if you see role models such as Dimple, it shows women that you can get to this stage, but more importantly as well, it shows all the investors and the men that British Asian women can do this. And we need to just really change that perception, whether it's conscious or unconscious, that there are so many people doing well, and obviously there's a bunch of podcast guests in this room right now as well.
Just to do one other thing, which I think you mentioned just in your conversation with this can-do. This can-do is so important. If there's one thing that you take away from this room, is that you can do it. My daughter said, right, she was the first British Asian to swim the English Channel, okay? She's not ready. She'll tell you about her own story, but she raised a huge amount of money for charity. But she had a can-do attitude that actually, I don't have to be male, I don't have to be, non-Asian, and I can do it. And she did it. I mean, so in that applies to every single person in this room, that actually you can do it. You've got to have your persistence, but you can do it. And that's a very, very important message.
I think I would just add to that as well, which is a lot of British Asians are children of immigrants. And I think the way that you are brought up, there's an element of safety that has been built into how you think about your career. So a lot of people were brought up looking at being lawyers or doctors or accountants. And it's a very difficult conversation to break that belief, because it's something that our parents held so tightly when they came. And actually all of a sudden you're turning their life's work upside down by taking this huge risk. And I think it's making also, the people around you comfortable with the decisions that you are making. And ultimately that doesn't always happen. But now we have much more, and many more examples of people that have been successful, people that are building businesses, both male and female. It's amazing seeing how many people in this room how many women have reached out to me and said, can we just have a chat? I want to talk to you about my business idea. That didn't exist 10 years ago. You didn't necessarily have the same social media presence that you have with, say, LinkedIn today. But you also didn't have this availability of mentors as such, or people that have kind of come before you that will respond to those messages and say, yes, let's jump on a call. So I think it's this change in mindset, in terms of how we think about our careers, and also the fact that we don't have to be doing the same career basically for the rest of our working life. But also, when you send somebody a message, A, there's someone there that you can speak to, and B, that they will reply and they will jump on a call with you as well.
I think to Dimple's point there about the family element, I think that's also probably a problem as to why we don't have the community potential to have that. Because I think a lot of us, as British Asians, British Asian entrepreneurs, go out as very, very headstrong individuals, almost like you don't need help in the beginning, or don't want to ask for help, because you're kind of built like that. You want to do something and almost prove everyone wrong, rather than ask for help, or build something with someone else. So where does the community element ever come in at that point? It doesn't really happen. You start building, and then you realise you need people. And this is kind of where we're at now. We're like, oh, actually, it'd probably be good to have a community around this now, because we're all, there are people doing very, very well and doing great things, and I think that's kind of, I mean, that's my opinion on it. I rarely see British Asian entrepreneurs with a co-founder. Rarely, in my opinion, from what I've seen, and I think that's because you kind of like go on and build it and think about, you know, the next bit. I think it's more of a fear of failure that drives you more than anything. So that's kind of my experience of it.
So thank you for those answers, and I'm going to open the floor up to the audience now, just bearing in mind the time. So if you want to ask a question, if you put your hand up, and if you could try and keep it short as well, just so we can get through a few questions. So if you give like a one-liner about who you are, and then go into a question. So the question there was about what was the opportunity that Jeff got 5 years ago that enabled him to do what he's doing today?
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity was a very simple choice. I could spend 4 days on the golf course or not, right? And if you've ever seen me play golf, it's absolutely useless. So so Reece, my son, had set up the VC business. It was about the size of this desk where we started, and he needed some help. Basically, in code, that was he needed some free labor. He needed some people with grey hairs. Unfortunately, there weren't any, so he got me. And that's it. And the rest is history. I mean, you know, I helped him. I got in the world of startups. I love technology. You know, I funded the first AI business 4 years ago. and that was it. But it's back to the original thing, really, that actually sometimes these opportunities come across your desk or come across you in life that you think, actually, you know what, I'm just going to grab that and see what happens. And if I was genuinely not interested or I didn't enjoy it, I'll be back on the golf course. And I'm not, so there you go.
So the question there was about there's now different funds set up for certain demographics, so it's gender or ethnicity. And what Salim was asking there is, what are the panelists' thoughts on that? Should founders take capital from those funds or not?
I think for me personally, if I was a founder and, like, say if I was a female founder and I didn't know what to do or where to go, and I wanted a VC who was going to guide me through the challenges of being a female founder, going to someone like Pink Salt would be perfect, because I know those guys and I know that I'd learn a hell of a lot from them, as well as having them guide me through. I don't have any issues with it personally, because I think that you're choosing your VC, or the VC is choosing you, because you both can guide each other through the next however many years of being together, because you understand each other's problems. If you're, you know, a black founder and you're going through something or whatever it is, and you want to go for a VC that understands what you're going through, that probably will help you on your journey. If you're going to a VC that doesn't understand what you're going through, they never will, you're probably going down the wrong path then, because you may have some nuances in your daily life. Like, again, being an Indian, there are going to be different things that I go through, whether it's like, you know, Diwali at certain times or whatever, you know, whatever it is, you know, the 5-day long wedding that I've got a plan for next year. Not everyone's going to understand that, but an Indian VC might and help me along.
Thank you. So I see why you asked the question, because I think there's an element with those kind of funds that it's like, oh, you only got the money because you're a female founder and you're brown, because, you know, the other big fund probably wouldn't have given it to you. The way that I think about it is, ultimately, your business is going to do the talking for you. Your business is going to validate whether you deserve that seat at the table. So you need to build your board composition with a group of people that are going to help you get your business there. And I think when you have people that are aligned with the difficulties that you're going to face, who can work with you collaboratively, who will go the extra mile with opening up their network, supporting you through your challenges, and also probably giving you a little bit of extra leeway because things don't always go to plan, you're most likely going to build a more successful business off the other side of it than if you had a big name, flood you with loads of cash, but as soon as your business hits a little bit of a road bump, kind of wash their hands of you and walk away. So fundamentally, take money from people that are going to help you build an incredible business and let the incredible business speak to what you do.
So first one was, you said that how often people don't get the support from their families or people around them, where they're telling them they're not special? And how do you keep going when people are telling that around you? And when you have that moment you might give up, how do you keep going on anyway? And then the other question was for Jeff in particular about, he got a shout out for being an incredible dad. And off the back of that, what can other dads in this room or other dads listening do to encourage their children, especially their daughters, I guess, to go and fulfill their dreams?
Thank you. So there's a couple of ways that I think about kind of dealing with doubt and people that are kind of almost waiting for you to fail. The first is that you meet different people across your life, across all the different stages. So when you're at university, when you're starting your first job, when you're starting a business, those people to some degree are more aligned with the stage of life that you are at than, say, your family was. Your family are amazing, but whilst most of the time you would expect them to unconditionally support everything that you are doing, that is not always the case. So the first piece I would say is find those people. Find people that are facing similar challenges to you. Start sharing them, even if it's over a coffee, and start surrounding yourself with other people that are facing similar situation to you. If anything, it will make you less special because you will be surrounded by other people who also think they're special and you'll cancel each other out. But that becomes your initial support network. So they are the people who are going to face the same difficulties that you are facing, both personally, when you're scaling a business, it's not all kind of professional. So that's the first piece. The second piece is when I look back on last year, so when Made.com went bankrupt, we had just sold Truva to them 4 months earlier, and we got told to shut down. At that point, it was pretty much the end of the road. Like, I had a lot of very senior, fairly powerful people telling me to shut the business down. The way that I thought about it at that point, and I think will be really useful going forward, is do you still have something to contribute here? Is there still a reason to push back? And by pushing back, are you still going to be able to make a difference? Are you going to be able to change the outcome? And I think that's really important because some businesses will close. And, that is the reality of it. So part of being an entrepreneur is also knowing at which point it's the end of the road. But by assessing that situation and saying, actually, even if there's a 20% chance, this is what it looks like and this is how I'm going to get it there, I at least need to give it that opportunity. And once I've done everything I can, if it doesn't come through, at that point I walk away. So it's taking something that is quite ambiguous and trying to put in some element of milestones against it, so you're able to make your decision making a little bit more binary. So those are the two pieces.
That question's the hardest of the all. I do believe in the principle of SKI. Does everyone know what SKI stands for? SKI? It's called Spending Kids Inheritance. So, are you laughing? Okay. To be honest, there's no rocket science, there's no magic. If there was, there's no parent's manual which says actually on day 27 or you do this. The only philosophy that my wife and I have worked on since the day the kids were born, since they could walk, is whatever you want to do, we'll back you. But you've got to do it well to your ability. So it doesn't matter if you're not top of the class. Did you do a great job? Did you work as hard as you could, even if you were bottom? Did you run as fast as you could? Did you put in the effort? When Leah set up her business, is that what she wanted to do? Did she put the time, the effort, the passion into it? Yes. It's just swimming or whatever. So that's all it is. I mean, it's just really, whatever you do, whatever that is, back you 100%, but do it to the best of your ability. That's all.
So I'm getting a lot of daggers from the back of the room there. We need to wrap up. So thank you so much to the panel for coming on today and sharing your experiences. Big round of applause for them.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for listening. It means a huge amount to us. And we don't think you realise how important you are. Because if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you leave us a 5-star review, it makes a world of difference. And if you believe in what we're trying to do here, to inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asians, If you do those things, you can help us achieve that mission, and you can help us make a bigger impact. And by doing that, it means we can get bigger guests, we can host more events, we can do more for the community. So you can play a huge part. So thank you so much for supporting us.